I still remember the smell of rain that night. It mixed with gasoline, and the faint sweetness of her perfume, the kind that lingers long after the person is gone. There's something about small towns after a storm. They go quiet, like they're holding their breath, waiting for someone to say something that'll never be said. My name's Ethan Cole, 27, born and raised in Wilmot, North Carolina, a town where everyone knows your last name, your heartbreak, and how many beers you had on a Friday night. I used to think I'd leave this place the moment I turned 18. But life had other plans. That night, I was sitting in my old Chevy outside Rosie's diner, watching the rain slide down the windshield in long, slow streaks. The neon sign above the door flickered pink and blue, like a heartbeat that couldn't decide whether to keep going. Then I saw her, Mia. She stepped out of the diner, clutching a paper cup of coffee like it was keeping her alive. Her hair was damp, curling at the edges. She wore that same faded denim jacket she used to steal from me in high school, and for a second, I thought maybe I'd fallen asleep. Because she wasn't supposed to be here. Not after 5 years. Not after the way we ended. She looked up, and our eyes met through the rain-smeared glass. And just like that, I was 17 again, heart pounding, hands sweating, feeling like the world could stop spinning if she smiled. But she didn't smile. She just stared for a second, then walked away, down Main Street, like she hadn't just knocked the air out of my lungs. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was the whiskey still humming in my blood. I threw the truck into drive and followed her. The streetlights flickered as I caught up. "Mia!" I called. She stopped, turned, and that look, that tired, familiar, beautiful look, hit me right in the chest. "Ethan," she said softly, "you shouldn't be here." That's what people say when they still care. "I could say the same about you," I replied. She laughed once, bitterly. "Guess we're both bad at leaving things behind." The silence that followed was thick. The kind that makes you aware of your own breathing. "You look good," I said finally, though it came out more like a question. "Yeah," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Life's been something." I wanted to ask her a million things. Why she left. Why she never called. Why my chest still hurt every time I heard her name. But all that came out was, "Do you want a ride?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Just to Elm Street." I knew exactly where that was. The old white house with the peeling paint and the big porch swing. Her parents' place. The one she'd sworn she'd never come back to. As she slid into the passenger seat, I could feel the air shift. Like time had folded in on itself, and I was trapped somewhere between who we were and who we'd become. We drove in silence. The wipers scraped back and forth, keeping rhythm with the hum of the engine. I kept glancing at her. The way she held her coffee, the tiny scar above her eyebrow from when she'd fallen off my bike sophomore year. Everything about her felt both new and familiar, like a song I'd forgotten the words to. "What brings you back?" I asked quietly. She stared out the window. "Family stuff." A pause. "My mom's sick." I nodded, the air tightening. "I'm sorry." She gave a faint smile. "She'll like hearing that from you. She still asks about you, you know." That hit harder than I expected. Mia's mom was one of those women who always smelled like cinnamon and gave everyone a second chance, even when they didn't deserve it. "Tell her I said hi," I murmured. We pulled up in front of her house. The porch light was on, casting a soft yellow glow over the rain-slicked driveway. "Thanks for the ride," she said. "Anytime," I replied. And I meant it, though I knew I shouldn't. She opened the door but didn't move. "You still go down to the docks?" "Sometimes," I said. "When I can't sleep." Her lips parted, like she was about to say something, then closed again. She just nodded and stepped out. As she disappeared inside, I sat there for a while, listening to the rain, to the hum of old regrets. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I drove down to the docks. The water was dark and still, reflecting the town lights like scattered fireflies. This was where I first kissed her, under the July fireworks, when the world felt endless and love felt easy. I stood there, hands in pockets, trying to remember what it felt like to believe in forever. Then I heard footsteps behind me. "Didn't think you'd actually come," I said without turning around. I couldn't sleep either, Mia replied. Her voice was softer now, less guarded. We stood side by side, the air heavy with everything we hadn't said. Do you ever think about that night? She asked. All the time. She looked at me, eyes reflecting the dim light from the dock lamps. You shouldn't. Why not? Because you deserve to move on. I laughed quietly. That's funny. You're the one who left. Her expression shifted. Guilt, maybe. I had to. Why? She didn't answer. Just stared out at the water like it might swallow her secrets whole. After a long silence, she whispered, I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, Ethan. I left because I thought it was the only way to save us both. Before I could ask what she meant, she turned and started walking away, back into the darkness, like she always did. And just like that, the storm outside had nothing on the one inside me. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of rain again. October rain in Wilmot always hits different, heavy, cold, like it's trying to wash away whatever's left of summer. I made a pot of coffee, stared at the empty second mug on the counter, and wondered why the hell I still kept 2. By noon, I was at the auto shop where I worked, Cole's Garage, a small, beat-up place on the edge of town that used to belong to my dad. He left it to me when he passed away 3 years ago. Some days I swear I could still smell his aftershave in the office. I was tightening the bolts on a Ford when Tommy, my oldest friend, walked in, chewing gum like it owed him money. You look like crap, he said, tossing a wrench onto the counter. Good morning to you too, I muttered. He squinted at me. You saw her, didn't you? I didn't have to ask who he meant. Everyone in town had seen Mia walk back into Rosie's diner last night. News traveled here faster than lightning. She came back, I said simply. Yeah, I heard. Word is her mom's real sick. Yeah. I wiped my hands on a rag. I gave her a ride home. Tommy raised an eyebrow. Dangerous territory, man. You sure you want to go down that road again? I shrugged. It's just a ride. Sure, he said, smirking. And I'm just here for the free coffee. But deep down, I knew he was right. With Mia, it was never, just, anything. That evening, I drove out toward Elm Street again. I told myself I was checking in on her mom, but really, I just wanted to see her. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Paint peeling, windows fogged up, the porch swing creaking in the wind. I knocked, and Mia opened the door. She looked surprised, and tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying something too heavy for too long. Ethan, she said softly. Hey, I said. I was just passing by. Thought I'd check in. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. Come in. The smell of old wood and cinnamon hit me, same as always. Her mom was in the living room, sitting in an armchair with a blanket around her shoulders, eyes closed but smiling faintly. Mama, Mia said gently. Look who's here. Mrs. Reyes opened her eyes. Ethan Cole. I thought I'd never see you again. I smiled, kneeling beside her. Good to see you, ma'am. She took my hand, her skin papery but warm. You always were a good boy. Don't let this world make you bitter. I swallowed hard. I'll try not to. We spent the next hour talking, mostly about small things. But every now and then I caught Mia watching me. When her mom went to rest, she said quietly, You didn't have to come. I know, I said. But I wanted to. We stood there in the doorway, the kind of silence that has weight to it. Then she sighed. Can we take a drive? So we did. We ended up at Lake Briar, where the trees leaned over the water like they were listening to a secret. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. We sat on the hood of my truck, legs brushing, watching the last bit of daylight fade. I used to come here after work, she said. Back in Chicago. I turned to her. Chicago? Yeah, she said, twisting a loose thread on her sleeve. I moved there after everything. She didn't have to explain what everything meant. The night she left. The letter she never sent. The voicemail I never deleted. I thought you'd gone to New York, I said. That was the plan, she said, smiling faintly. Plans change. I waited for her to continue. I was engaged, she finally said. Her voice cracked a little on the word. I froze. Engaged? I repeated quietly. She nodded, not looking at me. His name was Mark. We met at the coffee shop where I worked. He was kind. Funny. The kind of guy who makes you believe you can start over. What happened? I asked, though part of me already didn't want to know. She stared out at the water. He died. Car accident. Last winter. My chest tightened. Mia. She shook her head. Don't. I don't want pity. I needed to tell someone who'd understand what it's like to lose the same person twice. Her words hit me like a punch. We sat there for a long time, no words, just the sound of the lake lapping at the shore. When she finally spoke again, it was barely a whisper. I came back because I didn't know where else to go. And all I could say was, "You came back to the right place." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure if I believed it. That night she called me. "Can you come over?" she asked. Her voice was trembling. When I got there, she was sitting on the porch, knees pulled to her chest, tears running down her face. "She's getting worse," she said. "The doctors don't think she has much time." I sat beside her, unsure what to say. So I didn't say anything. I just wrapped my arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into me like she used to, like no time had passed at all. "I don't know how to do this again," she whispered. "Lose someone." I looked at her, at the way her hands shook, and said, "Then don't do it alone." She turned to me, eyes wet and shining. And before I could think twice, she kissed me. It wasn't the kind of kiss that promises anything. It was the kind that begs for a moment of peace, just 1 second of forgetting. And God, I wanted to forget. When she pulled away, she whispered, "This doesn't mean anything." But her voice said otherwise. The following week blurred into one long stretch of hospital visits and late-night drives. I helped fix things around the house, leaking pipes, broken lamps, anything to keep my hands busy and my thoughts quieter. But every time she looked at me, it was like standing on a cliff. Half of me wanted to jump. The other half remembered the fall point. One evening, I found her sitting in her mom's room, reading aloud from an old book of poems. Her mom was asleep, her hand resting gently on Mia's. Mia looked up at me and smiled softly. She used to read these to me when I couldn't sleep. "What is it?" I asked. She turned the book around. "It's called The Weight of Almost." I smiled faintly. "That sounds heavy." "It is," she said. "It's about everything you almost said. Almost did. Almost became." She looked up at me again, and I could see the pain behind her smile. "That's life, isn't it?" I said quietly. "A bunch of almosts." That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about her, about us, about how love sometimes comes back, not to stay, but to remind you what it once felt like to be alive. And even though I knew I should have let her go, I couldn't. Not yet. Because sometimes, the worst kind of love is the one that still feels right. A week later, Wilmot felt smaller. It always did when something bad was coming. The trees were turning, red, gold, the color of endings. Every corner of town smelled like burning leaves and coffee. I started to realize I wasn't just helping Mia. I was orbiting her again, same as before. And just like before, I knew it couldn't last. Mrs. Reyes passed away on a Wednesday morning. Mia called me, her voice breaking on the first word. I didn't say anything, just drove straight to her house. When I walked in, the place was too quiet. The kind of quiet that hurts your ears. She was sitting on the floor beside her mother's chair, holding her hand, eyes red and swollen. When she looked up at me, something inside me cracked. "She's gone," she said. I knelt down, wrapped my arms around her, and she fell apart in my arms, shaking, gasping, whispering things that didn't make sense. And all I could do was hold her tighter, like maybe I could keep her from breaking completely. That night I stayed. I didn't leave her side. We didn't talk much, just sat in the living room, candles burning low, a record humming in the background. She fell asleep with her head on my shoulder, and I thought, if this is what it means to love her again, even for a little while, I'll take it. The funeral was 3 days later. Half the town showed up. Wilmot always did that. People might gossip, but they also bring casseroles and show up when it matters. Mia stood by the grave, black dress fluttering in the wind, her face calm but distant. I stood beside her, not saying a word. Some things didn't need words. When it was over, people started to leave. She didn't move. "Come on," I said softly. "Let's get you home." She shook her head. "I can't. Not yet." So I stayed with her, watching the sun set behind the cemetery fence that it painted the sky orange and pink, cruelly beautiful, like life didn't care what we'd lost. Finally, she said, "I don't know who I am anymore, Ethan." I took her hand. "Then let me help you find out." For a while, things were quiet. She stayed in town, started sorting through her mom's things. I'd stop by after work, bring dinner, fix whatever was broken, the roof, the lights, her heart, a little at a time. It started to feel like maybe this time we could get it right. Then one evening, I came over and saw a strange car parked outside. Black sedan. Out of place in Wilmot. When I walked in, she was sitting at the table, and across from her was a man I'd never seen before. Mid-30s, sharp suit, city look. He stood up when I entered. "Ethan," Mia said quickly, her tone uneasy. "This is Andrew. He used to work with Mark." The man nodded politely. "Nice to meet you." I nodded back, though my gut twisted. "Work with Mark?" I asked. He hesitated. "Sort of. I handle some of his business affairs." Something about the way he said business didn't sit right. After a few awkward minutes, he left, shaking my hand too firmly. When the door closed, I turned to her. "Mia, who the hell was that?" She looked down. "It's complicated. I've got time." She sighed. "When Mark died, there were things left unresolved. Money. Papers. People asking questions. I thought it was over, but apparently it's not." "Mia," I said slowly. "What kind of things?" She met my eyes. "He wasn't just a coffee shop guy, Ethan. He was into something else. Something I didn't know about until it was too late." I stared at her. "What are you saying?" She rubbed her temples. "He had debts. Big ones. And now they're looking at me like I know something." "You don't owe them anything. Tell them that," she said bitterly. My heart started pounding. "Mia, if they're dangerous, I can handle it," she said. "I've handled worse." "No, you haven't," I snapped. "You ran. That's what you did last time." The words came out before I could stop them. Her face hardened. "You think I don't know that?" "Mia, I'm not." But she was already walking away. We didn't talk for 2 days. I tried calling, no answer. Tried driving by, no one home. The house looked emptier, colder. On the third night, she showed up at my place, drenched from the rain, trembling. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. I pulled her inside, wrapped a towel around her shoulders. She looked terrified. "They broke in," she said. "Someone went through my mom's things. I think they were looking for something." "What did they take?" "Nothing," she said. "But they left this." She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo, an old picture of her and Mark, smiling on a city street. But on the back, someone had written in black marker, "You can't hide what's ours." A chill ran through me. "Mia," I said quietly, "we have to go to the police." She shook her head. "They won't help. They never do." "Then what's the plan?" She looked up at me, eyes desperate. "I don't know. I need you." And I didn't even think. I just said, "Then I'm here." That night, she stayed at my place. We didn't sleep much. Too many ghosts in the room. At one point, she reached for my hand and whispered, "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For dragging you back into my mess." I squeezed her hand. "Maybe I never really left it." She smiled faintly, and for a second, the storm outside didn't seem so loud. Over the next few days, we tried to act normal. Breakfasts at Rosie's. Walks around town. Fixing her roof together. but the shadow of that envelope never left. Then, one afternoon, I came home to find the front door slightly open. Mia? I called. No answer. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then I saw it, a single photo on the table. It was me and her, taken at the lake last week. On the back, the same handwriting. She doesn't belong to you. And suddenly I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't move for a full minute. The air in the room felt heavier, like someone had taken all the oxygen and left only silence behind. The photograph trembled in my hand. Her smile in that picture was so real, so alive, that the thread on the back of it didn't make sense. She doesn't belong to you. I took a slow breath, then called her phone. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. Mia, it's me, I said into the receiver. My voice sounded strange, too calm, like it belonged to someone else. If you get this, call me. Please. Then I grabbed my keys and drove. Her house was dark when I got there. Front door locked, but the side window, the one that never closed properly, was cracked open. I climbed in, careful not to make a sound. Everything inside was the same, but wrong. Drawers half open. Books scattered. A chair knocked over. Someone had been here. Again. I found her phone on the floor near the couch, screen cracked, still buzzing with missed calls. Mine among them. My chest tightened. I stepped outside, scanning the street. That's when I noticed the car, the same black sedan from before, parked a block down, engine off, windows dark. I started walking toward it, adrenaline burning through me. Before I could get close, the engine roared to life and the car peeled away, tires screeching against wet asphalt. I ran after it, yelling her name like it would stop the storm that had already started. Hours later, I was sitting in the sheriff's office trying to explain. You're saying someone broke in? Sheriff Daniel said, scribbling notes in his old notebook. And this? Mia, she's missing? She didn't just leave, I said, my voice rising. They were watching her. She told me. He sighed. Ethan, you know how this looks. She's an adult. If she wanted to go, she could have gone. You don't get it, I said through gritted teeth. She wouldn't just disappear. He studied me for a moment. You still care about her? It wasn't a question. Yeah, I said quietly. More than I should. Daniels leaned back. I'll file the report. But you know, Wilmot, things move slow here. If she doesn't turn up by morning, we'll start looking. By morning. I wanted to scream. I didn't go home. Couldn't. Instead, I drove. Through every street, every back road, every place that used to mean something to us. The docks. The lake. Even the old train station on the edge of town. Nothing. Around 3 a.m., I pulled into Rosie's diner, empty except for the hum of the fridge and the tired waitress wiping down counters. Rough night? She asked. You could say that. I sat at the same booth we used to share, staring at the coffee that had gone cold before I even took a sip. That's when I noticed something. Tucked between the salt shaker and the napkin holder. A folded note. My name on it. Ethan. Hands shaking. I opened it. It wasn't her handwriting. It was the same harsh scrawl as the messages on the photos. Stop looking. She made her choice. I drove back home in the dark. Every headlight behind me looked like a shadow following too close. When I pulled into my driveway, there was something new on my porch. A box, small, plain, no label. For a second, I thought about leaving it there. But of course I didn't. Inside was a cassette tape. No note. No name. Just one word written across the label. Listen. I found an old player in my garage and pressed play. At first, just static. Then, her voice. Ethan, if you're hearing this, it means I didn't get to say goodbye. My heart stopped. I know you're probably angry, confused, maybe even scared. But I need you to understand, none of this started with me. Mark wasn't who I thought he was. He got involved with people he shouldn't have. When he died, I thought it was over. I was wrong. Her breath hitched. They came after me, Ethan. They think I know where something is, money, files, I don't even know. I thought if I came back here, maybe they'd lose interest. I was stupid, I was desperate. A pause. You once told me love means showing up when it's hardest. You did. You always did. But I can't let you get hurt because of me again. Another pause. Then softer. Please don't look for me. And then the tape clicked off. I sat there for a long time, not moving, not crying, not breathing, just listening to the sound of nothing. By morning, the sun had come up, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt like the world had ended quietly, without fireworks or thunder, just one long exhale. The sheriff called later that day. We found her car, he said. Abandoned near the state line. No sign of her. I thanked him, hung up, and drove there anyway. The car was parked by the river, door open, keys still in the ignition. Inside, her denim jacket lay folded neatly on the seat, the same one she wore the night I saw her again. I picked it up, pressed it to my face. It still smelled like her, rain and coffee and something that felt like goodbye. That's when I noticed a small piece of paper sticking out of the pocket. Her handwriting this time, shaky. Faint. I'm sorry. For everything. You were the only real thing I ever had. The town moved on, like it always does. People talked for a week, then forgot. But I didn't. Every night, I'd drive down to the docks, the same place where she first told me she was leaving 5 years ago. I'd sit there, watching the lights shimmer on the water, wondering if she was out there somewhere, still breathing under some other sky. Sometimes, I'd think about the last words on that tape. Please don't look for me. But of course, I always did. Because how do you stop searching for the one person who still feels like home, even when they burned it to the ground? It's strange how silence can become a person's only language. For weeks after they found Mia's car, I barely spoke. Didn't go to work. Didn't answer calls. The world went on, but mine stayed right there, by the river, frozen in that moment between hope and goodbye. Sometimes I'd replay her tape, not to hear her words but the sound between them, the tiny breaths, the tremble that told me she was still fighting, even when she'd already lost. It wasn't just fear I heard. It was love, quiet, terrified love. One night, about a month later, I drove to the river again. It was cold, the kind of cold that hurts to breathe. That's when I saw headlights behind me, pulling up slow. For a second, I thought it was the sheriff again. But the car stopped a few feet back, and the door opened. A man stepped out. Tall. Black coat. Didn't say anything, just looked at me with eyes that didn't belong in this town. You Ethan Cole? He asked finally. Who's asking? He smirked. Someone who's been cleaning up her mess. My stomach twisted. You mean Mia? He nodded once. She told you not to look for her, didn't she? I took a step forward. Where is she? He sighed, like he'd been waiting for me to ask that. Alive, he said. For now. He tossed me an envelope. Thick. Heavy. Don't open it here, he said. You'll understand when you read it. But when you do, forget you ever knew her. That's the only way she gets to stay alive. And just like that, he got back in his car and drove away, taillights fading into the dark. I sat in my truck for almost an hour before I opened the envelope. Inside, a letter, her handwriting again, and a small flash drive taped to the back. I unfolded the letter with shaking hands. Ethan, if you're reading this, it means they let you go, which means they've finally got what they wanted. The files were never about money. They were about proof. Mark was part of something he shouldn't have been, a smuggling ring that stretched all the way up to people who wear badges in this town. When he tried to back out, they killed him. And when I found his records, I became their problem too. That flash drive holds everything. Names, dates, shipments, all of it. I wanted to destroy it, but I couldn't. Because I kept thinking maybe if I did one good thing before I disappeared, you'd still believe I was someone worth loving. Don't come for me. I mean it this time. I'm heading somewhere they can't follow. Somewhere the world stops asking who we used to be. Thank you for every moment, even the broken ones. You were the reason I stayed alive long enough to say goodbye. I stared at the letter until the ink blurred through my tears. Then I looked at the flash drive. Part of me wanted to throw it into the river. Pretend none of it mattered. But she trusted me, One last time. So I didn't. I drove straight to the sheriff's office, letter in one hand, flash drive in the other. When Daniels read it, his face went pale. This can't be real, he muttered. But it was. The weeks that followed were chaos. Arrests, investigations, headlines that turned our small town upside down. Names came out, people I'd grown up around, people I trusted. And then, just as suddenly, it was quiet again. But she never came back. Winter turned into spring, the river thawed. The world kept spinning, and I learned how to live with the almost goodbyes, the almost forevers, the almost love that burned too bright to last. Some nights, I'd sit on my porch and imagine her somewhere far away, maybe by an ocean, maybe in another quiet town where nobody knew her name. I liked to think she still wore that denim jacket, still laughed when she forgot she wasn't supposed to. 6 months later, I got a postcard. No return address. No message, just a picture, a coastline, sun spilling over the horizon, and 2 words, written small in the corner. Still breathing. That was all I needed. Maybe that's what love really is, not the staying, not the promises, but the quiet relief of knowing the person who broke your heart is still somewhere in the world, alive enough to remember you. And maybe, someday, if the river ever forgives us, we'll both find our way back, not to each other, but to peace.